All right, Ryan, put him up. Fight me. Why don't you? Come on. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's freaking go.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. I will knock your ass out.
You're the one hiding out in Toronto. Instead of coming here and face me like a man.
In the big city? How am I hiding in the big city?
Yeah, come in here to face me like a man. That's what. All right, whatever. All right. Hello, interwebs, and welcome to Close Up. I'm your co-host, Joe.
And I'm Ryan.
Creed 3 just released in theaters the other week, and we're here to talk about it. Full spoilers ahead. So let's zoom into our medium shot now. How hyped were you for this thing?
I was very hyped. I was very super duper hyped. We've discussed this. I was following the Rocky franchise for a while and the Creed franchise. So yeah, really hyped for this one. Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut. Jonathan Majors is going to be in it as well. Was in it. My God. Yeah. That's my history.
Yeah, it was basically the same way. I've been a fan of the Rocky franchise for most of this last decade, and, you know, Creed 3, yeah, sure, it doesn't have Sylvester Stallone in it, and Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut. Who knows how that'll go, right? But, you know, I like these Creed movies, and Creed 3, sure, why not? I was going to see it either way, whether I heard the reviews were good or bad. I'm one of those brand loyalists. I've seen all the other Rocky movies, and I'm a brand loyalist and a completionist, so I was going to see this either way. But let's get into our close-up and talk about what we actually thought about this thing. You want to go general thoughts first, or my first thing here is I just wanted to address the elephant in the room. Talk about maybe...
Yeah, go ahead.
Rocky's absence in this thing is a little bit weird for people, probably. I did wonder going into Creed 3 if it was going to be a sticking point with me, because Rocky was such a big character in the first two Creed movies, and that's where this franchise started, obviously. So, would Creed work without Rocky? We didn't know. What do you think? Did it work?
I think it worked okay. His absence was very noticeable. But again, there's also some behind the scenes stuff as well on why Stallone himself is not in the in Creed 3, or he's even stated that he won't watch Creed 3, not because of Michael B. Jordan or anybody working like in the crew or whatever, but it has to do with a certain producer who he basically this producer, I can't find his name right now.
Irwin Winkler?
That guy, yeah, Winkler. He owns all the rights to the Rocky franchise. He always has, and Stallone has no ownership over it. Winkler won't even give him part of the ownership for it, so I think that was part of the reason why he left the franchise as well, but also I think it was a good time for him to leave in Creed 2. Because
wrapped
his
up the story perfectly.
Was basically up, but yeah, it was so weird to not even have maybe even a phone call or even a scene where Michael B. Jordan is like on a fake phone call with Stallone, and he just says, "Okay, bye, Rock," and you don't even. So it is noticeable, but also I kind of respect it where it's like that's in the past and this is his own story.
Yeah, I actually didn't think it was that jarring having Rocky not be in it. I didn't miss him for most of it, actually. There were just a couple times that I do wish he was there, and some of them I didn't even think about till after the movie. Like, I saw Creed 3 with my mom, and afterwards she pointed out, yeah, Rocky definitely would have been at that funeral. And then I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, that is weird. They didn't even have a casual explanation, like you were saying, call him up on the phone and fake be like, oh yeah, Rock, it's too bad you can't make it. You got something serious, anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. He definitely probably would have been there, but also,
yeah,
there. From rewatching the first few Creed movies, he wasn't really. I mean, he got closer with Adonis's mom in Creed 2, but in Creed 1, you did like just playing a little devil's advocate here. He never really contacted her after Apollo's funeral. So there's that as well. So maybe there's I don't know, just playing a little devil's advocate, but also yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was.
He was close with
There's a
Apollo than
few
the wife,
gripes. I will say there's only a few gripes I have with this movie, not because of what happens in the movie, but because of certain scenes that were changed from the trailer to the screen, which a lot of Hollywood films do a lot.
Didn't even notice, to be honest. Get into
Oh
that.
yeah, you don't watch.
Well, I
So
do.
there's
I
one
do, but I'm not
porn-
like. I used to be the guy
Yeah.
who like analyzed and watched trailers over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Now I kind of casually see them, do my
Can't,
best to
yeah.
forget about them.
The one noticeable one, and it happened the best way. The biggest example I can think of is that one movie where it's about that blind man and they're in his house. What's that one movie called?
I know the one you mean.
Yeah,
It's a horror
freaking
movie.
Yeah, it's that avatar. Like in the trailer, he says, "Now you'll see what I see," and he shuts the lights off. That never happens in the movie, and it's like one of the big lines in the trailer.
Yeah.
And in this trailer for Creed 3, I was really hyped for it because it's such a great line and a great delivery from Tessa Thompson, where they're at the funeral. Adonis doesn't really know what to do, and then Bianca just goes, "Well, maybe you'll just have to fight him." That's not in the movie at all. It's
Isn't
a
it?
completely different. I can't remember. No, it's not. I can't remember the line she says in the movie, but I was like, that's not the line. I was like, so at that part, I was a little disappointed. But
I
she
think
did
she
hype him
did-
up.
I feel like she did say
She didn't
that
say
line,
that
just
specifically.
not at that.
She didn't say
not
that
at the funeral.
specifically.
Then what'd she say later? Because there was that scene later when
I
he
don't
opened up.
remember the line. It's been like a couple weeks since I watched the movie, but it wasn't. It might have been in a different scene, but wasn't that specific scene in that specific shot.
Yeah. Well, that's just misdirection.
Yeah.
They're trying to make, he caused the death of somebody, so that'll be a revenge story, maybe. I don't know if that's good or bad marketing, because it does get you intrigued, but that's not what happened at all. You're taking a line
No,
from
it
way
should-
later in the movie with completely different context.
No, it's not even that. It's literally the same scene where it's Adonis and Bianca sitting down. It's the shots where they're on their shots on their back and they're both looking at each other.
That's the scene I'm thinking.
And I
yeah.
don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember the final line she says in the film, but it's not the same in the trailer. And I've blown it completely right now because I don't remember what she says in the movie, but it's not the same in the film.
Was there any other ones, or was that the main one that you're problem with?
Just a few, like, and a lot of movies do this a lot where, I mean, a lot of Marvel movies do it where it's the same scene, but it's a different take, but it's the same lines as well. But other than that, I'm just like, okay, I kind of appreciate they do that, but also it's kind of like, what's the point of putting arguably the best take in the trailer if it's not in the movie? Maybe that
favorite was
one
Rogue
couple
One.
will, what was Rogue One? Oh yeah, they took out like a shit ton of
Rogue
the
One's
TIE
trailer,
fighter, right?
and like nothing in the Rogue One trailer was actually in the movie, basically.
Yeah. We could all sue for false advertising, like that one couple did.
With it was
Yesterday.
Ana de Armas, and they advertised
Mhm.
Ana de Armas in Yesterday. That's what it was. That sounds like another topic for another day, but it is an interesting idea, and
Hot
can't say
take. Hot take. Her cameo in that movie wouldn't have saved the movie.
the movie actually, I liked it when it was sticking to the premise.
Yeah.
Yesterday was like awesome in certain parts. With like there was still a couple, like that one twist I remember towards the end with the cameo. Like that was
That
really
was good.
awesome. That was great. But the most of it was just like, what are we?
Someone
Why?
in my theater went, no, they didn't. Someone in my theater went, no, they did not.
Okay,
But
let's not get into
yesterday-
that just in case.
I know, but it's just like my mini review of it is the main love interest, the one he has a crush on, only liked her when he was poor and was not successful, and then he becomes successful, and then she hates him. Makes no sense. Anyway, on to a good movie.
Yeah, so Creed 3, I think this is a really solid debut for
Mhm.
Michael B. Jordan. It's not
It's
not
really well
perfect.
done.
It's
No.
I don't know if it's being overpraised or just praised enough right now. I haven't really looked into reviews. I think it was good. He's clearly new enough in his career that he's not like masterfully doing anything right now, but it's more competent than most things coming out in Hollywood right now, I'll say. I can tell he gave a
Oh, for
crap
sure.
about the story, about the characters, about the world. He clearly had a passion. This wasn't just a paycheck for him. So what he lacked in some skill and practice, he made up for with clear energy behind the scenes. And I really respect him, and I look forward to seeing what he does going forward, because I think it'll only get better from here. This is his first try.
I've heard he brought a really just fun energy to the set every day, and he was just like a great person to work with, both as the director and as the star of the show, which is so tough to do, because I always try to picture it like, okay, if I was the star in something but also direct it, that would be so difficult, because you have a certain idea of a shot in mind, but if you're not watching the monitor, who do you trust to be watching the monitor? And then you watch the playback, but I guess it's just going to take time, which is the real answer.
I've done stuff like that before too, and it kind of sucks because in the past, I've been a bit of a control freak myself, and I don't always trust the camera guy to do what I want. So that doesn't help either. So it takes a lot more time to double back and be like, no, I trust you. You got it right.
Right.
So Michael B. Jordan, I don't know how he was on set. Maybe he was like that, but it seems like he had enough confidence in his crew to do things right. And because he's been on both sides of it. So I'm sure he knows how the crew would like to be treated as well, having been crew. Which I don't know how many directors who just start off as directors would be like that, right? They probably would be more control freaky and you're like, nope, my way or the highway, and yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely, I can't remember if this is a COVID movie or not. I assume it would be, maybe even around 2022. I don't even know. Because I know it was advertised.
It's probably on the tail end of COVID where everyone was starting to get out of it. So, like, technically was, but not.
Yeah. Did you see Michael B. Jordan got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
I did not. Good for him.
He was there, and Jonathan Majors was there to give a nice little speech.
So that was nice. Jonathan Majors is the best part of this movie. He's
so good.
I love
when we went to.
Sorry, you go.
Well, when we went to like the premiere event, it was mostly just like, oh, we're in the theater and we watch like 30 minutes of them on pre-recorded red carpet talking and being interviewed by the one guy from TikTok, which is fine because the guy from TikTok is actually a really good interviewer. They talk about how I've completely lost my train of thought. Oh no, but Jonathan Majors technically has 3 movies that came out in the last 2 months. There's Ant-Man, there's Creed 3, and then Devotion, which the older, like the airplane movie.
Devotion came
like
out like last fall. Like, did they re-release it for the Oscars or what?
I don't know. I thought it was sometime December or January. I can't remember. But yeah, he's been busy, and I actually haven't heard anything about Devotion. I'm lying, but I'm sure it's good. Yeah, 80% Rotten Tomatoes. So, yeah. Came out November 2022. But yeah, he's so good, and seen him go from like 2 different villain roles. Going from Quantum Mania, where he's all big and stoic and proud and just a booming personality, into Creed 3, where he's more laid back. He's assessing everything. He's looking around his surroundings. He's making sure everything's... He's a bit of a schemer, but he's also this unit. He's just an absolutely dangerous man. He's a man from the streets. He's got such versatility, and he brings so much charisma to his roles. And I'm so excited to just see his career keep going more and more, because he's phenomenal.
I never really saw much of Jonathan Majors before the last month or so, and he impressed me a lot as Kang in Quantumania. As we discussed, he was the best part about that movie as well. But I think Diamond Dame's an even better villain. I especially am can't think of the word. I respect his career even more as an actor now that I've seen him in very different roles back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Because as two different villains. Because now I'm like, oh, okay, he was impressive in the one, but he's completely different here and just as good. Like, oh man, you are good at what you do, and I really want to see more of you going forward. I think Diamond Dame's a better villain than Kang was, even. I think,
For
having
sure.
just a few weeks out from both of those movies, I remember more about the one character. Sorry, Marvel, but you're putting all your eggs in the Kang basket for the foreseeable future, and
Mm-hmm.
sorry, he's not as good a villain as you could have made him. I don't have much hope for that going forward.
Mm-hmm. And
But
Diamond Dame is a great boxing name. Let's get that out there.
yeah,
Just a great little boxing name. We could just do a whole podcast on Jonathan Majors, if I'm being honest. But there's other stuff in this movie I want to talk about.
how long has his career been going? Is he more of a? Has he been around a
Well,
while, but just in small stuff? Or
I know right before, when he played He Who Remains on Loki, he was on that Lovecraft show.
okay,
So, and I think he's starting it. So let me quickly look up his IMDb because I don't think it's been too long. But yeah, known for Lovecraft Country. He's only been in 19 projects.
oh, so
So
he's pretty new still.
he's pretty new.
I haven't really
He
heard his name much till recently.
it looks like a lot of small projects, and then I think his first big one was probably Lovecraft Country, and then oh yeah, he was in that Netflix movie, The Harder They Fall. That was good. It was like that Western, but it was a mostly African American cast. It was actually pretty good.
Now, okay, I didn't
Idris
know which
Elba
one you were
was in
talking
it.
about, but now it's ringing a bell.
It was pretty decent.
I was interested in that one, but I never actually saw it. Maybe one day.
There's a great there. It's not like supposed to be like one of those greatest westerns of all time, but it's just so well written and shot and
It looked fun from the
just
trailer.
acted that it's pretty good.
Yeah. So Creed 3, I think, was a really solid story for Creed. This might be Adonis Creed's best character story.
Yeah.
I enjoyed him a lot in Creed 1 and 2, but for some reason, he's not really the story I remember the most from those. When I think of Creed 1, I remember like Rocky's battle with cancer. When I think of Creed 2, I think of the Dragos and their fight for redemption. And Adonis Creed was interesting in those movies, but he really shines here more than anywhere else in his franchise. So in terms of the Creed franchise, this is Creed's best.
Yeah, for sure. And it delves so much into Adonis's past, where it's going back to his juvie days before. Well, I guess technically he's with
Dame.
Apollo's wife.
Oh, yeah.
Like living with Apollo's wife, but still hangs out with Damien behind the mom's back, which is the context I got throughout the scenes. And you see their backstory, and you do kind of see how when they were younger that Damien was supposed to be the guy. He was supposed to be the main fighter. Adonis was supposed to be in his corner, and then shit happens. And then Dame gets... I don't know why I'm trying to avoid spoilers. It's a spoiler review. But they get into an altercation with an old foster home caretaker who was very abusive towards both. I think, was it both of them, Adonis and Damien? Or was it just Adonis?
I think it was both of them, but Adonis was more bitter about it seems like.
Yeah. So the foster care person comes out of like this 7-Eleven or just a convenience store. And Adonis sees him after, how many years, and then just beats the living crap out of him. His buddy their buddies go to stop Adonis and start beating him up, and then Dame pulls out a gun. The police show up, And then it's
Adonis
revealed
runs.
later on in the movie that Adonis just runs, and that's the last time he sees Damien until they reunite years later, where he's posted up on his car, which I was a little disappointed it wasn't the Mustang from the other two movies, but also he's more successful, so he might need a more safer car and maybe look a bit more professional, but a Mustang's a cool car. I don't know why you'd need to get rid of that. It was his dad's car. That's established in the lore. And I think it's a good backstory, and I guess it's definitely shows. I think it's really well written, and this movie's also written by Ryan Coogler and produced by him as well, so
Okay.
he has not lost his touch. And it dives into that backstory where I'm going to get a little political here, where a lot of alpha male, not just athletes, but just alpha male people have a really hard time of connecting to the past if there's something tragic that happened or traumatic that happened and dealing with it. It's more so, okay, it happened in the past, I'm just going to ignore it and bury it deep down. But what they don't know is
your life fighting, get the anger out in the ring. Yep.
Yeah. And why I think this movie shows really well, especially with Adonis and Bianca's discussion and even arguments with each other, is that you can't just bury it deep down. It will eventually come back to haunt you, or come back and you'll just burst out and you might accidentally take it out on the ones you love, which Adonis doesn't do physically, but he verbally yells at Bianca, and their daughter is right there who, he doesn't like that at all. He doesn't want her to see that.
She can't hear it, but she can get the energy. She knows it's...
Yeah.
And it does affect
she's
her
great
too, because she's caught for fighting at school as well, and so Adonis is kind of having a negative influence on her, not dealing with his own problems. Being a fighter makes her want to be a fighter as well, but not necessarily for the right reasons. Which I'm a little disappointed that they didn't get into. This was the biggest problem I had with the movie, was that they kind of just dropped that whole plot line. Like, oh, you set up an interesting subplot about the daughter here, and then just by the end, it's never resolved. She never learned any lessons from the encounter. She was clearly still interested in fighting, which obviously they're setting her up as the future of the franchise, but that's another issue. Just, you kind of went nowhere.
I did like though, in that one scene where she's getting punished by the teacher for it, Adonis goes, "So you're punishing her for standing up for herself, but not the bully who initiated it?" I was like, yes, more of that. Teachers need to understand that. Like, why are we punishing people who are defending themselves or retaliating, and not people who are initially bullying?
That happened so much when I was a kid. Anytime somebody got into a fight defending themselves, they got in trouble too.
It's supposed to be a serious...
Like, what the hell?
It's supposed to be a serious situation, but when it's like that POV shot of Mila, who's the actress, Amara Creed, great name, like just punches the camera, everyone just like lets out like a little chuckle, like yeah, I'd do the same. They all know we would probably do the same. And Mila Davis Kent, who plays Amara, she's actually I think deaf in real life, but she does a phenomenal job. I think she does great. I don't know the logistics of having a deaf boxer, because I think you need to hear the bell and hear the ref, but also I don't know how it works. Like, I'm sure there's ways around it to work. I don't know. I'm not in the health field. I'm not in the boxing world, so...
Well, I'm sure there was
if you're building the future franchise on this character, I'm not mad about it. There's just logistical things where I'm just like...
I'm sure there was a time where some stuff like that would be harder to get into, but they probably have accommodations for deaf boxers nowadays.
It'd be interesting to see. She's definitely such a beacon of light in this dark story.
Yeah,
of Adonis's. He has this dark past. She's a lot of fun in this film, and there was a lot of little chuckles when I was watching this movie, because it's the little details, man. That's why I think Michael B. Jordan has a great future as a director, where they have in their house, they have like see-through floors, because again, she's deaf, so it'd be easier to, instead of, looking over the railing, they could sign through the floor. And you're just like, just little details like that are really cool.
Never thought about that.
Yeah. I thought, that mwah, just like icing on the cake. I think it's really cool. I want to get into a little bit about like Bianca, because I think Bianca is great in this. Tessa Thompson nails it all the time. Their chemistry has been working for 8-9 years now, and it still works here.
I
But I
think
kind of feel like,
they wasted her. She didn't
yeah,
get
I
enough
feel
to
like she
do.
was sidelined, and she's becoming more of a producer now than an actual singer. And they were building up something where like I felt like she was gonna have an outburst at one point, being like, I wanted to do this, but I wanted to get into more of my own personal music, but I physically can't anymore, or something like that. But they kind of make her more of a supporting character instead of back into a main light character, which I was hoping they were, because
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they just focus too well. Of course, the focus is on Adonis and Dame's story, but I just feel like because they did that, they shoehorned Bianca.
Now, what you said about her being a supporting character, it does start to bug me now that I'm thinking harder about it, because she's clearly going through her own issues, but they spend the entire movie with her supporting Creed through his thing. He never really reciprocates. He kind of talks to her a little bit about, oh, well, don't you still want to be doing music? But it's maybe one conversation in the movie. How many times did she talk to him about his thing, try to pry up his past to get him to actually talk things out, feel better? Not to say he's a bad husband, but he looks pretty bad in comparison when they don't delve into her story very much.
Yeah. And
I can
thought
assume
they were
those
gonna set up
conversations are happening off camera, but they didn't show it.
That's why I thought they were setting up like a conflict to happen at the end between Adonis and Bianca. And they do have a bit of a like argument afterwards, but it's not about her career, because there's a few times where Damien is kind of feeding Bianca a little bit like, well, don't you wish you could do more music? Don't you? He does that a couple times.
Yeah.
And I think that was just another way, that would have been another way for Dame to get inside Adonis's head, where he's a bit of a manipulator and a bit of a schemer, where he's like, I'm going to try to break down this guy as much as possible so I can beat him in the ring. It happens when when Dame was sparring with the one guy he fought to get the sparring with the heavyweight champ, and then he basically hurts the shit out of him. And then when he gets to be in the main fight, you see Dame kind of like, he's not listening to his trainers at all, like the two people there, but he's analyzing, and it's shot really well. Michael B. Jordan does great directing the scene where he's looking at, the bruise on his right eye, or him holding his rib, and he's like, okay, there's the weakness, I can exploit that, I can do that. And Jonathan Majors does a great job where it's like, it's not really, he's not swaying, but like I'm kind of mimicking it a little bit, but he's kind of just like, he's got this look that he's definitely analyzing what's going on.
You know what that reminded me of when I was watching that? The Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes movies.
Yeah.
How they film those fight scenes. I don't know if Jordan was inspired by those when he was making this, but just like you said, that analysis stood out to me as well. I'm like, well, I've seen something very similar, and it's cool to apply it to boxing.
It's a little bit of that, and I think it's also a little bit of anime as well, because there's the shot where I think it's at the end where he gets punched in the stomach, and it's the sweat jumping off of his body. And then he's over the fist, and his eyes are being bugged out. Like, it's very anime. And Michael B. Jordan has a known love for anime. Like, he's huge into it. And that first fight scene, like the very beginning where he's fighting the same guy from Creed 1.
Pretty Ricky Conlon.
Yeah, Ricky Conlon. That shocked me. I had no idea who was in it. I had no idea Conlon was in this movie. I had no idea Drago was in this movie.
That's one of my favorite details about this movie, is that they acknowledge the old antagonists, and they're kind of friends, or at least respectful colleagues and associates now. And I like seeing
Ricky.
Well, no,
Conlon's still talking shit. He's still talking smack during. He's like, "You're still the same Creed." Like,
yeah, but
he's fighting, like, so they have to like jaw at each other. Yeah.
There was a scene later on,
that was a huge shock,
where they were shaking hands, and they're like, good to fight you again. They're still still friendly, or even with Drago, he's friendly with him too. And I just like
Mhm.
that they show that kind of progression. Like everyone, they may fight tough in the ring, but outside
Yeah.
they're just a bunch of professional athletes, and they don't have
Every time I
real
saw
beef.
every time I saw Drago, I got a little bit happier. For me,
Yeah,
like the film just kept getting better, but I don't know why. Because I thought that because at the beginning he just kept saying Drago. It was like, oh, maybe he's just doing like a reference. And you see him on the posters, and then you see him walk into the party. I was like, oh, he is here. And then when, and then when Michael B. Jordan's starting to train for Dame, he brings in Drago to be his sparring partner. I was like, oh my god, they have established characters in this universe and they're using them. Yes, I love that. And they
yeah.
even like are jawing at each other while they're sparring because Drago's like good to beat you, or he says something like that, and it's so good. I kind of love that they're buddies now.
I like
But
that
yeah,
he's still. I also like that he's still competitive. Like he lost against Creed,
mm-hmm.
but he's still gonna face Felix for the heavyweight championship of the world. That's the big
Yeah,
title fight. He's still like the second best boxer in the world right now.
mm-hmm.
He didn't become the champ yet, but he's still fighting, and he's still really good.
Mm-hmm. And I think this movie technically now makes, spoiler alert, makes Michael B. Jordan a 2-time heavyweight champ of the world because Dame became the champ when beating Felix, and then challenged Adonis, and now Adonis beat him because when Adonis retired, he obviously had to give up the belt.
He was
So
undefeated.
now it makes
Yeah,
him a 2-time champion. Yeah. So now it makes him a 2-time champ. Um, which now puts him at the same level as Rocky because Rocky's also a 2-time champ. So
yeah.
that's an interesting parallel as well.
I thought that was
I would love to
one of the.
see Drago. I don't know why. I would love to see Drago win the champ one day. Even
Yeah,
if
me
it's like
too.
a line. Even if it's a line they say in Creed 4, I just want that to be it. Like,
That he won once. I thought
I
that was
just
one of
won
the
once.
dirtiest bits of manipulation when you're talking about Rocky and Creed as the champions. There was this one line I specifically had to write down where Dame was saying, if Apollo Creed could take a chance on an underdog, you could do the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was, I'm like, oh, you're invoking the Rocky history here. I thought that was pretty clever how he knows the history of
Yeah.
boxing enough to be like, hey, this worked for the Italian Stallion. Your own dad gave a chance on a nobody and turned him into a
Mm-hmm.
success. So, hey, if you're my friend, do the same for me. That was pretty brilliant, I thought. And like that's a good way
Yeah.
to both play into the lore and be a good, like a genuine, like of course that would get into his head. It
Mm-hmm.
would get into my head a little bit, make me feel guilty if I
For
did
sure.
nothing. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe I should give you a chance.
Yeah, I think this movie is just it's so good, and especially there's just a few scenes that stand out. It's the diner scene, it's the beach scene, and then it's also the final fight where they're so different. I think, and we'll get to the actual fights later on, but I
Yeah,
think my favorite has to be the beach scene where this is the not
the
this
twist.
is not the climax, but this is it's the twist, but also it's not the inciting incident too. Now I'm trying to get technical and it's not working out. But this is the moment where
The halfway point.
Adonis is like,
turn,
okay, yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
this
know
is the moment
I don't
where
remember
Adonis is like,
term.
on which scale of the hero's journey? No. It's it's the moment where Adonis is like, hey, now I have to fight this guy. It's where, and also there's another great callback where Dame calls him Baby Creed, and we know that Adonis doesn't like being called Baby Creed, and then he goes up to confront him, and he goes, you're threatening me? And then Dame just straight out hits him.
Levels him.
No
Yep.
gloves. Yeah. But it's like, nah, there's no threats here, bro. Like, I'll mess you up. He's like, he's on the beach, he's chilling with all these delinquents, and Adonis pulls up, gets clocked, and then there's that whole scene where right after where he spills all his trauma onto Bianca. And I just think the relationship between Dame and Adonis and the acting between it is just so well done, where Adonis is kind of it's well acted where he's trying to invite Dame in but also be cautious at the same time because he knows how dangerous Dame can be but also wants to trust him at the same time. So
well, it also speaks
throughout
to
this
me
whole
like he's nearly like it also shows that he's on a different level now. There was a time when these guys were equals, but now Adonis is the wealthy, successful family man, and he's not inviting an old friend into his home. He's inviting an ex-con from the streets who he probably sees as below him socially now. He still wants to be like, oh, I'm humble enough to invite my old friend here no matter what. He fell on some hard times, but like the classist side of him is like, well, I don't know how I feel about this. So there is that kind of internal war between himself.
It's definitely it's very interesting. Where I'm trying to look up. Yeah, Duke. Sorry, just the trainer of Adonis, who was Little Duke, who is the son of Duke. He did good too, but there's one of my favorite lines is when he's talking shit about Dame, and then Dame walks by in the gym, and then he just goes, "Don't get quiet now, Duke," or like Little Duke.
Yeah.
I thought that was so funny because I was like, I've been like growing up in sports, I've heard that before, and it's just like it's a nice little line. But he does great too, where it's just like, this guy is fucking insane. Why is he here? Like, I know he's your friend, but he's one of those guys who you would want in life, where
Duke is the only voice of reason.
Yeah, he's not afraid to call people out on their bullshit or on like what is the actually truth. Like, I get it, you grew up with this guy, but
let's call it like it is, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
You haven't talked to him in 20 years, so... Which he could have had the chance if his mom, Marianne, didn't hide those letters.
Yeah, if his mom didn't pull a notebook.
Yeah.
I made the reference to my buddy, and it took him a second to get the notebook reference. And for those of you who don't know... Okay, well, then I won't spoil it. Fine. It's a thing with letters anyway, but the mom hides the letters, and from Adonis's point of view, it's kind of shitty to do because those are addressed to him and his private letters. It's his right to have, but also
he could have had a chance, to make amends a long time ago.
The mom's trying to protect her, adoptive son from a potentially very dangerous man, so. It's not a morally right thing to do. Well, I guess it is a morally right thing to do, but it's also wrong at the same time. So
I just think that it was even worse at the beginning. Like, Dame, who came out of prison, was way different than the Dame who went in. The Dame who went into prison, the worst thing you can say about him is that he got himself a gun. For what reason? I don't know. That's a little bit, different in the States, different culture, I know, but I'm coming from Canada, where if you have a handgun, okay, that's like people who have handguns sketches me out.
Don't you know in the States, 1 out of 3 babies are gifted a gun at birth. It's just in the citizenship.
Of course. I'm just coming from a different culture, but like that's maybe the worst thing you can say about him is, why would you have a handgun if you didn't plan to use it at some point? But he was using it to defend his friend. He didn't even pull the trigger or anything. He was just threatening with it. So that's the worst thing you can say about Dame when he went to prison. So, the mom not wanting to have him communicate with his best friend then, it's like, well, that's a little harsh. He's not really a bad kid. The Dame who came out is, a really hard and bitter, is a hard and bitter man.
A harsh situation.
Bitter, violent.
It's tough with the whole gun situation because, well, we're not going to get too into it, but there are people out there. I'm not going to do specifics, but there are people out there who need to purchase a handgun strictly for protection just because of the neighborhood that they're in, and the society itself is not going to change overnight, and because of people like, oh, guns are bad. Yeah, but there's still these corners of the world, and especially in the States, where it's super dangerous. There's people are robbing stores all the time. There's burglars, there's, looters. So it's sad to say, but there are certain situations where you do need a gun for protection. And a lot of the times it probably starts out that way, but then it just involves into this whole ordeal. But it's a whole political mess where we're Canadians and we're looking at it from the outside in. So, but I've since growing up have come to realization there is places, sadly, where you do need a firearm. I don't know if you need an AK or a fully automatic weapon, but that's a whole different discussion for another day.
I'm going to say no. Absolutely not.
Unless you're at a firing range and you want to test it out, because that'd be cool. But
that's about the only place.
Have you seen, to get away from the politicalness of it, though, have you seen the TikTok where these guys brought like a Fortnite Nerf gun to a firing range, and they brought it in like a sniper case, like a real sniper case. They open it up, and then, because I guess you can bring your own in this one part in the States, and the people who worked there were so chill about it. They're like, huh, like they were like laughing about it, like that's funny. And then one guy comes over and he's like, man, I don't know if you're allowed to fire it in here. It might be too high a caliber. And they actually let him test it out in the firing range. So they were super chill about it.
That's cool. That sounds fun. So I guess
while
we're on the topic of the mother, let's get into her story a little bit. I feel like this is supposed to be maybe a parallel to Rocky 3 when she's kind of his mentor, and like Mick died in Rocky 3 and now she dies in Creed 3. And it's sad, but as soon as they said she had a stroke once, I'm like, oh, that's it, she's dead. They're going to kill her.
Yeah. Hey Joe, what's better than one stroke? Two strokes. I was like, oh my God, they're going to kill off the mom by the end of this, aren't they? Which is, I don't know. Again, I'm not in the health field, but I guess, well, it makes sense, actually. Once you've had one stroke, you'd be more susceptible to another one. That would just make sense. But I was just like, damn, they're really about to kill off mom?
Yeah.
I was a little sad about it. She was just this great beacon of light. Yeah.
And of course, it's basic drama that the last conversation he had with her in her right mind, he was mad at her, and okay, that's another thing to feel guilty about. I mean, it's effective. It's not like original, but it's effective.
And then she talks to him as if he's Apollo, not Adonis.
That was the saddest part in the whole freaking movie.
I was like, oh no, stop.
Why did you leave me, Apollo?
Dude.
Yeah.
So sad. And then Adonis, I think it's great. It's also great character work where Adonis is not this perfectly written character where he doesn't know how to react in that situation, where I think, doesn't he say something like, no, it's me, Adonis. Like, he doesn't know how to, like, how do you, like, I wouldn't know how to do it. I don't think he would know how to do it. I don't even know if professionals know how to do it yet, but it's just, he's just so confused and he's so hurt that his adoptive mom is dying, and it's the one like strong parental figure he's had in his life, and it's just so traumatic for him. This is a good fucking movie.
Yeah. Let's see, who else? What else to talk about? You want to talk about the fights now, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I loved how these fights were filmed, except for one part, and I'll get to it later on. But I just loved how it was filmed. It wasn't filmed like the other Rocky fights, where the style is a little different.
There's more energy
really
to them.
loved, and what I really loved in this movie, where it got me hooked right away, where Adonis is fighting Pretty Ricky, and he's doing the dodges, and it's slowed down, and you see Adonis notice he's leaving his body open, like his ribs open. He's not blocking them. And then he does it again. He's like, okay, this is opened again. The round ends. Next round, he goes for the body and basically goes for the knockout. And I was just like, that's expert level filmmaking, where the filmmaker, well, Michael B. Jordan, is showing you how Adonis thinks and how his thought process is like 10 times faster than a normal person's thought process. I just thought that was beautiful.
The fights are a lot more subjective this time around than ever before. Which, hey, this is the 9th movie in the franchise. You got to keep finding new ways to shoot these fights. I'm surprised they still feel fresh after 40 years. So Michael B. Jordan,
man. Damn.
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan thought of a good way to do that. I really liked the way he shot it. It was fast and kinetic. I thought it was really cool when the camera kind of moved with the punches. So it nearly felt like the camera was being thrown along with the fist. The punches have weight and impact, which is partially down to the filming and choreography, but more down to the sound design, I think. I always love it when a punch sounds like it connects real hard and like, ooh, it makes me recoil. That's always good. I also liked how intimate it was, how when they're in the ring, it feels like the camera is nearly between them the whole time. And like you said, very subjective from the point of view. There wasn't really a lot of objective shots. And that really comes to a head in the final fight when there's that whole section where the stadium just becomes empty and it really just like empty and silent, and it just focuses on Dame and Adonis. And that was one of the coolest sections in all the fights, I thought, in this movie.
Yeah, that's my one gripe. The one gripe with that, I love the void part. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. There's barely any sound. There's a bit of music. There's not much. It's very subtle. There's no crowd cheering. There's no announcing. It's just them. And I just did a little slur there for a little bit. My bad. But it's just them fighting. And it's getting to their mindset where they're not even like a fighter's mindset. They're not worried about the crowd. They're not worried about all the lights. That's what they're seeing. It's just the one person. And my one gripe with that is at the end of that round, we're like, and that's the end of the 11th round. You're like, whoa. We just fast forwarded like through the whole fight. That was my one problem with it. I was like, I wanted to see like 12 rounds. Well, like not 12 rounds, but maybe a bit of a montage. But that's his own way of getting to the final round. And
I had big problems with that last fight, personally. It just didn't really connect with me at all. Like, the other fights in the movie were really good, but the final fight was just so emotionally dead. It just felt like I'm just watching two guys hitting each other for a bit, and they're pretty evenly matched. And there's a lot of cool stylistic elements, like you said, some anime-inspired stuff. It's visually cool, but I felt nothing while watching it. And
interesting.
I thought about why later on, and I wondered if that may have been intentional. Personally, it's the most anticlimactic final fight scene in the entire Rocky Creed franchise. It's easily my least favorite one. And no, I'm not including Rocky V. That wasn't really a boxing fight. But the reason I think he did it more anticlimactic, and this is just me giving him credit, I don't know if he intentionally made it anticlimactic, but to me, because this whole movie is about emotional trauma and coming to terms with it, to get to this point, I have to double back and say that I didn't really like that he fought him in the first place, because it nearly felt at odds with the whole point of the movie, is learning to come to terms with trauma and not fight every battle with your fists. And he's got all this guilt, and he still gets suckered into this fight anyway. I don't know why, after all this emotional growth he went through, he felt the need to be prideful and get into the ring in the first place. He was like in an emotional state he was in. He didn't have to do that. He's like, you know what? I'll just let it be. He's kind of slandering my name in the media, but let's be a bigger person and not do this fight. Because I'm, like they kept saying, I'm older. I'm not as in shape as I used to be. What are you fighting Dame for at this point? So I was a little bit annoyed even going into the fight. But that's why I thought, doubling back again, that the fight was sort of anticlimactic. Because the real climax was that conversation they had after the fight, where they finally apologized to each other for what they did and come to terms with their own past and leave on friendly terms. That's the real resolution of the movie, is that conversation. The fighting did nothing for them, and I do think that's the point. It was just them punching each other in the ring. It solved nothing. It didn't make them feel better. There was no resolution to it at all. So
I feel like that final fight, it was more, instead of being super climactic, I think it was just more, it's more of a pseudo replacement for Adonis dealing with his trauma and confronting his past. Like, Dame is the entire embodiment of Adonis's past and everything he wants to forget. Yep. And Dame is Adonis is to Dame everything he wants to be and everything he wishes he was. And they're both are a little older and not and almost out of their prime, where they both need to do this now. And I think, just to counter you a little bit, Dame does say to Adonis, like, I got the title, but I'm coming for it all. Like, he's threatening him to take, like, everything that Adonis has. So I think a part of it also is Donnie needs to beat him in order to put Dame back in his place and be like, no, I've earned this. This is all my stuff. Like, you're not gonna beat me at my own game. Like, I'm better than you. And that's why I think is, I do agree with you where the final fight did feel a little anticlimactic, but that final, it's worth it to get to that final conversation in the locker room.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's
which is
where
kind
the
of
real
funny.
climax is.
Which is really funny because there is a deleted scene in Creed 2 where Adonis goes to the locker room to talk to Drago, and it's almost the same conversation, but like different context and different dialogue. So I thought that was really funny, where it's just like, we're getting the deleted scene from Creed 2 right now. Okay.
Yeah. Now, see, that one I bought more into because he had more of a reason to fight Drago in that one. It's nearly like a revenge quest for, like, yeah, this is the son of the guy who killed my father, so he really wanted to do that fight, and that the conversation after was important, but the fight really felt like it had weight. This one, well, once again, to counter you, to me, the whole thing just seemed like a unnecessary show of pride on Creed's part. It's like, yeah, I'm coming for you and I'm coming for your stuff, but how? You're the heavyweight champ. You kind of slander him a little bit, act like he's a coward. You make him feel bad about himself. But really, what at the end of the day can Dame take away from Creed that he couldn't take away himself? It's like if he just ignored him and let him be, he'd keep pestering him. But I don't think there's a lot he could have actually done to him. So it's really, which to me just bugs me because, like, why did Creed want this fight in the first place? It did
to shut him up.
I know, but that's what I'm just saying. Like, yeah, I can see that. He wanted it to shut him up, but it just feels at odds with what they were trying to do with his character arc this entire movie. Was him coming to terms with emotions in a healthy way. And then at the end, he decides to do what he's done this entire time. And you know what I mean? It's like the arc is going one way, and then right at the end, he does a 180 just so they can have a final fight.
Yeah, but Dame's not going to stop coming after him, though. So he's got to beat him in the only way he knows how. And that is to fight.
And I get
like,
that.
Dame's not going to have a sit-down conversation with Adonis and be like, oh, yeah, you're right. As much as every high school principal wants you to deal with a fucking bully. But
yeah,
it's just not going to happen that way.
And I get it. It just felt weird the way they built up to it. And it's like, oh, well, I'm going to deal with my emotions healthily now. But I'm also going to fight because that's what I know how to do. That's how I've always dealt with my problems. It's like he didn't really get the emotional catharsis from that he wanted, which is the point of the conversation at the end.
I don't think he did, though. I don't think he actually knows how to deal with emotions correctly yet. And I think that's why he fights. Like, even, admitting to all that stuff to Bianca and like screaming at her, like, that's not dealing with your emotions correctly, technically speaking. But it's still, and also, not to sound like that guy, Joe, but it's a boxing movie. You're going to see the two people fight at the end.
I know. And that's why I'm like, they had to get to the fight somehow. It just felt more forced than I wanted.
First of all, Adonis started it by going on TV with Stephen A. Smith, okay? That draws the line right there. You should have heard the like chuckling and like the groans when he popped up on screen. When Stephen A. and everyone was like, "Oh my god." Not that Stephen A. Smith is like a bad person, but he just has a lot of hot takes in terms of sports, and a lot of people don't agree with him. He's a great TV personality, though. I'll say that if you ever see any clips of him.
Is he like
he shits on hockey a lot.
I was going to say, is he like America's Don Cherry equivalent?
That's a good comparison, but a lot less racism. But Stephen A. Smith, he's big into He's got a big basketball background. He was a journalist for the longest time, in the 80s and 90s, I want to say. And now he's got his own show, First Take, which is what we saw in Creed. And he's basically like an analyst. He's a sports analyst, and he's doing a good job.
Yeah, well,
He's got a lot of hot takes though. Yeah, is there anything? What else? Who's Laura?
Laura?
Oh, it's the mom of Felix. Sorry, I was just looking at the cast list.
Oh yeah, well, going back to the fight, I also had another point about the fights, is that I thought the best fight was his one against Felix in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
When Dame was fighting. That one was like, oh crap. I told you before, the ending of this movie was maybe one of my least favorite fights in the franchise. I think Dame's fight against Felix is one of my favorites, just to be a little positive now. Like, when he's like bone-crushing hits, kicking his ass so hard, I'm like, oh, I actually feel this hurts. I want to recoil.
And it's filmed so well where when Dame does all the little like boxing cheats that are very subtle, you understand them like perfectly. You understand what's happening. You understand what he's doing. And again, it's just filmed so well, and it's just it's a well-filmed fight. I think my problem with the final fight is just it feels short, and that's just to deal with like the void and the fast forward. I feel like if there was more to it and there was more build up.
I think it also bugs me that he didn't fight as dirty as he did with Felix.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more dirty.
Because that's how he won the crown in the first place, and now you're fighting the guy you actually want to fight, and you're fighting more fair. What's that about?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to see Apollo fight against a guy who kind of cheats. Well, not cheats,
I want to see Dame versus Drago. That's my dream matchup.
Well, Dame didn't even want to fight Drago. That's why... Well, I know he wasn't going to fight a Drago at any point, but he's like, let's get my prison buddy to smash his hands up. Which I saw coming. As soon as he got the hands smashed up, I'm like, yeah, I bet Dame hired that guy because he's got the motive to do so. That would make sense.
I didn't see it right away, but the buddy I told Joe this. The buddy I was with like whispered to me, was like, that guy was definitely hired to do that. Because it does feel like really random at this like suave, nice party. And Dame's just there, just kind of like in the corner as it's happening, just kind of like analyzing it. Jonathan Majors does so fucking good in this movie. Goddamn. He plays subtlety very well.
Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting about Damien was I noticed the color motif for him was green pretty much all the way through. Like, pretty much every time he showed up in the ring or just in general when he was
it's a very
framed,
subtle green. Yeah.
It was very subtle green, which I'm like, okay, duh, green is jealousy, probably. So I'm like, Michael B. Jordan was thinking
disgust.
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan was thinking about colors. So I'm like, okay, his thing is green. Whereas I noticed with Creed's colors, he was wearing very muted colors the entire time. Which made me think, okay, well, in Creed 1 and 2, he wears, like, the very vibrant red, white, and blue shorts, like Apollo Creed. He was very, well, vibrant, like I said. But in this one, he's more muted because he's past his prime, I think. He's not as passionate about the sport anymore. He's retired. He's a little more low-key. He's more willing, but he wears more muted colors. So I think that's another element of color Michael B. Jordan was paying attention to, which did make me think, oh yeah, he's lost a little shine just subconsciously. So that was good filmmaking there.
Yeah, it was. I'm always excited to see the costume design of the boxing outfits in these movies, because I think they've just gotten better and better and better and better, especially from like the first Rocky movie all the way up to here, where. And it doesn't have to do with like budget or just what it is, but I think it shows the evolution of boxing and how much detail goes into that type of stuff. And I love how it's put into great detail here as well, where was Felix, he comes out in like a tiger mask or a lion mask or something like that. Like there's boxers that do that. So I was like, wow, he went for it there.
Yeah, very Latin American inspired entrance
Mm-hmm.
to represent his
A
culture.
part of me was like, because they come out with that like color smoke, like the smoke bomb thing. I was like, what are the logistics of that being in an arena? Like, is that gonna mess up the boxers in some way? But I'm sure there's good ventilation.
Okay, so I just have a couple stray thoughts. I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the backstory, but I thought it was a little bit weird the way they teased the backstory out throughout the movie. I'm like, I know exactly what's going to happen. Maybe it's because I saw the trailer. I don't know. And I'm like, I know what this movie is about, roughly. But I'm like, I see the backstory and I'm like, okay, I get it. Dame's going to get arrested. You're just teasing out how. And I'm not that interested in how. If you just showed the whole thing up front, that would have been more efficient, probably. So that was an editing choice that just bugged me a bit. Like, I get it. You're just padding it out a bit. My other stray thought.
It's not about the destination, Joe. It's the journey.
The journey's boring.
The journey's boring. I know you're in jail. I don't need to know why.
No, just tell me why. Just don't act like I didn't figure it out by the 5th time you come back to the flashback. You know?
There's show, don't tell, but you don't have to show me 20 times.
With just a little bit more information. I'm like, by the time you show me what actually happened, I got it. I long since got it. The other thing, the training montage sucked. I'll say it.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
It was my least favorite in the franchise. It was just dull. I'm like, yeah, stuff's happening.
It was quick. I felt like it was like a minute 30 at least.
It was quick, but it felt like forever.
Yeah. And like it's a dumb joke, but it's just when Adonis runs all the way up to the Hollywood Hills and is in front of the Hollywood sign. And I was just like, that's not incredible. Influencers do that every day. Like, yeah. It's not that great of a feat.
You're trying to recreate the iconography of running up those the steps in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, Hollywood's iconic. I'm sure Hollywood people loved it. But
oh, for sure.
Yeah, I thought the main problem with that, though, was that they didn't... The best Rocky training montages show the difference in technique. Like, one of my favorite ones was... the best one is probably Rocky 4, when they're showing how Rocky trains naturally in the woods by, doing chores and stuff, and Drago's getting pumped full of drugs and being trained by machines. Or Rocky 3, the montage where Clubber Lang is fighting his way up from nothing, really trying, and Rocky's mostly just signing autographs and doing marketing deals. Just showing the differences of where they're at right now in terms of prep. So, or other ones like the original Rocky where he's just, he's not the best fighter in the world, but it just shows him actually getting better. This one, I'm like, they kind of do the worst of both worlds. I'm like, well, I know Adonis is not in his prime right now, but you kind of got him back to his prime without enough challenge to be interesting. And his training technique didn't differ enough from Dame's to be interesting either. So it's like you're just showing time has passed. It feels functional, but it's not that entertaining compared to...
It feels like they were kind of rushing to get to the end fight.
Yeah. It's like you put the montage in because it needed to be there to move the story along, but it didn't feel like much care was put into it, really.
I think the best Creed montage is in the second one where he's out in the desert.
Yep, that's a really solid one.
That first one is a close second when he's like hitting the pads and he's doing it super fast. Like it's just like a great moment where it's just they're in sync together. But yeah, the one in the desert is probably the best one.
So
the
after
Creed
this movie,
one, not all of Rocky, the Creed ones.
So after
everyone
this movie,
calm down.
Do you think there's a chance for a Creed 4, or are we gonna get a time skip and focus on Amara?
I don't think they'll do a time skip. I think it'll be a bit.
I think he's done. This movie was already painting him as over the hill. I don't see where you can go from here. He already came to terms with his past. He already retired. He got his second chance at heavyweight champion of the world. And the very end of the movie shows him longingly looking back at the boxing ring like, yeah, I think this chapter of my life is over. And if it did end here, I'm fine with that. It's a solid trilogy.
Yeah.
They don't need to do a fourth. I don't see a reason for them to do a fourth. There's not much more for them to delve into in terms of the character, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe show him be a mentor, like go into that phase of his life. Like, okay, we saw Rocky.
That's what I was thinking.
Like, we saw Rocky as a fighter, and then we saw him as a mentor with Creed, so. But it also feels weird to have him be a mentor at number 4, right? Like, Rocky didn't become a mentor until the 7th installment of the franchise. Okay, 5th. He did it in the 5th, but it didn't go well. It didn't go well for him.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's been no talk of if this was going to be his last one, so I think this one's going to be so successful that he's going to have to do a Creed 4, and the producer's going to pride at him to do a Creed 4. So, and I think what's smart with both Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler is that they're going to take their time with it and develop a decent story for Creed. What's that going to be? Is it even so, like, it doesn't even have to be Creed gets in the ring. It could be him trying to mentor his daughter, and then he's trying to deal with her being deaf, and then also maybe Bianca now has to go full deaf because her diagnosis, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's not going to stay the same. It's going to get worse. Yeah,
that's why she stopped
I thought
performing.
they were going to do in this movie.
Yeah, that's why she stopped performing, she said, because it was getting worse because of it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there is potential for a Creed 4, but this feels like a natural ending here for the character. And, like, I do want to see them go forward with Amara, because I think that could be interesting for a couple reasons. It's like, well, first of all, it's the franchise first female lead, and also she has a disability, which would be, like you said, maybe not beneficial for a boxer. You have to be able to use your hearing as well. So, you know, it could be interesting just for something different, just to refresh the franchise that much more for number 4. Something we haven't seen a boxer have to deal with before, being deaf. Okay, something different.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see where this franchise goes from here.
Continue the
interested
legacy
in it.
Yeah,
continue the legacy. I just hope it doesn't go all the way down to, like, we're gonna flash forward like 50 years and it's gonna be like Creed the Third, number 4. You know, like, I don't want to see that where we're just like, holy crap. It's like a legacy sequel of a legacy sequel of a legacy sequel.
I think Rocky sort of shot himself in the foot there because they made a point a long time ago that he never wanted his son to be a boxer. He was willing to train Tommy Gun, but he wanted Robert to focus more on his studies and be like, hey, you know, I did all the fighting so you wouldn't have to. Just be a smart guy, do your thing. Like, fighting's for guys like me who didn't have as much potential. So I think it's interesting that Creed encourages his daughter to be a boxer, just as a bit of a parallel. So there is potential for a legacy there that Rocky's family never had. So you could keep it going for a little while. Yeah, so I guess ultimately this movie was okay. In terms of where it ranks in the franchise for me, I'm going to be honest, it's probably my second lowest. It's like Rocky 5 and then this one. It's the worst. I think it's the worst Creed movie in the franchise. It's like, it continues the Rocky trend of none of the movies are bad, but it's like, where do you rank them? This one's near my bottom. Still enjoyed it, but it didn't connect with me like the other ones.
Yeah, I'm flip-flopping between it being above Creed 2 or not.
I don't remember where you put Creed 2. Because for me, Creed 2 was my second last.
I put third to last. Creed 2.
Okay.
And
So we're still similar here.
Yeah. Because I do love how this is a more personalized story and not to say Creed 2 isn't a personalized story, but I feel like more focus was put on Rocky dealing with it as well, and yeah, there was more. I just think this movie did a really good job with because they're both about the past and dealing with it, and I think Creed 3 did better with that. But I also think some fights were filmed better in Creed 2, and I think some fights were filmed better in Creed 3. So I'm flip-flopping between the two. Can they be tied? No.
Sure. No.
Just because of Jonathan Majors, I'm going to put Creed 3 over Creed 2. And I love the guy who played Drago. But Jonathan Majors is just
Dame is easily
amazing.
The series' best antagonist so far for the Creed movies. He's the most memorable.
I would love to see. I don't believe in spin-offs, but I would love to see a Dame spin-off. I don't know why.
That'd be cool. Sure. Something a little
Also,
bit
the budget
different.
for this movie was $25 million more than the last one, which was $75 million. Still in today's day and age, relatively cheap.
Most of that budget must have gone to his mansion set.
The mansion set and probably the slow-mo fights. So far, it's made $124 million at the box office. So
seems okay.
Which is pretty.
I don't really
decent,
know.
I think
how it compares to other Rocky movies.
Well, it's very early on, right? So it's got to make a little bit. It only came out 2 weeks ago? Yeah. So
it's still fresh.
That's still pretty good. It's made over its budget, but the way film works, it's like it's a rough estimate, but you basically have to double the budget for it twice because of marketing. Like marketing is almost double of what the budget is sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, so I'd say Creed 3, worth a watch. Solid movie.
I really loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured.
Oh man, all right.
I figured early on. I'm like, I think Ryan will like this better than I did, but
that's okay.
Yeah,
it happens. There will be, I will say, there will be a review where we'll both agree something is phenomenal, and it may or may not be next week.
Yeah,
it all depends what's happening tonight.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess because. I'll tease it. You'll know by the ending. All right, let's get out of here.
Alrighty. All right, you can find me at Ryan Walker Official on YouTube, Instagram, and on TikTok.
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at ThoughtPlay Media. Also, check out the Close Up with Ryan and Joe Facebook page for latest updates on the show. If you listen to us in audio, check out our YouTube channel. And if you're on YouTube, find us anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. We hope to see you on the next Close Up with Ryan and Joe, where we review The Last of Us. Till next time.
See ya.
And you better fight me next time.
I'm not going to fight you. You got knocked out.
Coward.